Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this North Carolina Botanical Garden special webinar with Ashley Lomboy. I'm excited that we have folks tuning in from across the southeastern United States, as well as folks attending from Colorado, Maryland, New York, Oregon, Texas, and Thailand. So we thank you all for being here with us today via Zoom. So now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Ashley Lomboy. Ashley is the Global Information Security Manager at Corning Optical Fiber and Cable, a proven information security professional and leader with over 22 years of success in guiding implementation of leading-edge technology and information security solutions. Ashley earned a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from St. Martin's University in Olympia, Washington, certificate in project management from the University of Washington, and a number of other certificates. She is the leader of the Corning Native American Council and a U.S. Army veteran serving in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Ashley is the founder of the Waccamaw Siouan STEM Studio to make STEM more accessible to Waccamaw Siouan youth. Ashley is the recipient of the 2023 American Indian Science and Engineering Society Professional of the Year for Indigenous Excellence. And she's also a graduate of the UNC Native Leadership Institute and advocate for Indigenous rights. Ashley enjoys spending time with her family, gardening, and learning more about different cultures. And it's my pleasure to welcome you, Ashley. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
I had a warning to unmute myself. Thank you so much for having me. And I am so honored that that you've asked me to come and speak and share more about myself and my people, about our program, and most importantly, Hooheh, which is our word for Longleaf pine. So Tanake, welcome, and thank you for having me. So today we're going to talk about the Hooheh Reforestation and Cultural Burn Program. And Hooheh is our Wakan word for longleaf pine. And so as we're working through some of our language revitalization, we saw a great opportunity of a word that was recorded in 1710 by John Lawson while visiting the Wakan people. And through that process, he documented 110 Wakan words. The Wakan people are a subdivision of the Waccamaw Siouan people, and so we've taken this word in as our word for longleaf pine because that was what was around in 1710. And so really appreciate to be able to incorporate our culture into our program. And so we'll kind of go ahead and get started. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. I'm sure David let me know if that's not the case. All right. And so I wanted to start with this quote. It's by Wilma Mankiller. The secret of our success is that we never give up. And that really has a deep and long-lasting impact for myself in that there are Native tribes who have been fighting for federal recognition, for water rights, for land rights, where that fight has continued on into the next generation. It's not just, me in my lifetime, right, in my hopefully a long lifetime, but passing that on to the next generation to continue that fight. And so you see a lot of Native people advocating for things where tribes have been advocating for hundreds of years for the same things. And my tribe is no exception to that. We have recording going back into the early 1900s asking for water rights, land rights for our people. And still today, those fights still continue, and we never give up on that. So today I've broken it down into 3 sections. First is introductions. I want you to know more about myself and about my tribe. We're going to talk about Waccamaw Siouan STEM Studio and what we're about, which really is our cornerstone for how we build these programs and how we're successful. And I really, at the end of the day, the legacy I want to personally leave is so that others know how to do this type of work long past my time and how to do that in right relationship with tribal communities, which lead to these great and wonderful building partnerships that you'll see through this grant, the Hooheh Reforestation and Cultural Burn Program. So hang around with me through the first two parts, and when we get there, you'll understand more about the importance of this program. First, I want to share a bit more about myself, and we've already done a bio. I am Waccamaw Siouan. I was born and raised in Buckhead tribal community in near Lake Waccamaw. I decided to leave home when I was 18. I joined the military. I spent about 5 years of my life living outside the United States. In Germany, I lived there for about 3 years. In Iraq, I count that. In Southwest Asia for 1.5 years. And then my current work kind of takes me around the world. And so I've done a lot of traveling there, even once I thought I was done. And so I have two beautiful boys, Jared and Logan, who are here. Jared here and Logan, my daughter, Mercedes, my mom. This was me winning the Indigenous Professional of the Year award for ACES, and really a crowning moment for a combination of so many different things in my life kind of coming together. So really, I would not be able to do this without my amazing husband, which I need to give more shout out. I'm doing better. To really allow me this opportunity and really help me with the children and afford me the space to be able to do all this amazing work that we've been able to do together. Okay. So our people are alive and vibrant. We have been around for thousands of years, stewarding this land here in the Southeast. I'm a member of the Waccamaw Siouan tribe, and these are just a few glimpses of us in the past, us today, and us in the future as well, as we see some of our kids are working through microscopes, looking at, kind of those next careers. And how do we bridge together traditional learning and techniques of our people along with this Western science, and how do those two worlds come together, and how amazing that is when it happens. And we've already seen this map one time today, which is really outstanding. And so with this, I want to highlight the amount of tribes that we have here in North Carolina, and use it as an opportunity to tell you that we have the largest population east of the Mississippi here in North Carolina. And so if you're working in any one of these communities in North Carolina or counties, you are likely, I mean, we're all on tribal, on native land, but you're likely working in and around a tribal community. And so it's important to really recognize where you're at in place and space and here on land. We have 4 urban centers here in North Carolina as well. I really encourage you to work with. It becomes this melting pot of community to work together, and so really great state to live in. And Washington State's great too, but my home will always be North Carolina. All right, here's my really fun motion. I'm gonna stop that. I don't know why that's doing it. This is why I don't play around with motion. But really in there, I'm trying to let you know that they're where we're located at, which is really by Lake Waccamaw area. I'm gonna save you from the bouncing of that motion. But we as Waccamaw Siouan people, we have 1,600 1,630 tribal registered tribe members of our tribe. We have a 7-member board, which is elected board of the people. We also are filled with entrepreneurs within our community. We have a very entrepreneurial essence about us, wanting to make sure that we're taking care of our family and we're leaving these legacies behind. We are always kind of moving ourselves forward, and I am really proud to say I'm Waccamaw Siouan, and you'll see even more why. So here's a quick video or picture of STEM Studio. Is a program that that we founded. We're going to learn more about it. But in this picture, we were visiting UNCW's Makerspace, learning about virtual reality. The kids really enjoyed the YouTube room that they had. I call it the green room. But really, we were here exploring and taking back with us so many different new technical opportunities. for our community, and the kids and the elders got to explore, which really kind of catalyzed us into our STEM day, which happened at the end of last year. And we brought some of those same activities back out for the community to see. So STEM Studio, and this is my son Logan. This is our first fish camp, and it's hard to believe that was 4 years ago. He was such a little boy, and I have had this picture, used it all this time, and he's an expert fisher in my eyes, but I'm a little biased. And so about STEM Studio, we are about a 20-member group of Waccamaw Siouan STEM professionals who have built a program that provides STEM opportunities to Waccamaw Siouan tribal community. This is where we started at. This is the foundation of it. We said, hey, we live out in this rural community. We grew up there. We know what it's like. We know there's not a lot of opportunities. And these large companies and groups and organizations, they're not coming out to rural North Carolina and working in these spaces. Most of their work is within a radius of their company or of their university or of their organization's home, and they're wanting to impact there in that radius. And it leaves these large rural areas like deserts of opportunity. Which I see that desert, like Wilma Mankiller said, we continue to fight. We don't give up. And so a lot of us, 20 of us, who grew up in those small tribal communities, who left home, made a career for ourselves in STEM, and said, hey, we have assets ourselves that we can give back to our community. And we created this program using what resources we had, and it has really grown into what I'm proud to tell you, 47 program events to date. We will hit 48 this weekend at the Boys and Girls Home Farm Days. And I'm sure by the end of this year, we are already poised to hit 50 program events within 4 years of time. And that is really fast paced. This is all volunteer work. We are volunteering our time to do this, and really trying to move into more of a sustainable, where we can pay people, right, to help us do this work. So we're founded in 2020, right prior to COVID, January 1. We've had 47 program events so far. We engage average on 50% of our tribal community. This is nearly 1,000 tribal members a year engaged with our programs. And this is a lot for a 1,600 tribal community base. We focus on the family unit working together. And what that means is if you have a tribal family, if maybe your husband is non-native, he can come too. We're looking at the whole family unit and treating that whole family unit with STEM. We're not just looking at the one kid, you come to our program and then you leave. We want to make sure that we're servicing the entire family unit as a whole, regardless of what race you may be. And that has been one of the things I have to say out loud, because it's not widely understood, is that just for Native people, it's for Native families. And so we've delivered over $30,000 in STEM material over the past 4 years, and we have awarded $4,000 in scholarships so far since we started. And we have built and maintained 32 different partnerships with organizations, companies, tribes, and universities all throughout this time. And this is really what has helped us catalyst and overcome some of the hurdles we may be having is these partnerships and making sure that we build them in a right way. Not all partners work. Sometimes we have different missions. Sometimes we have different approaches to how we work together that may not be a good fit for our tribal community. And so a part of my job as kind of the leader or the founder of STEM Studio is to make sure that we're bringing in good partners who want to come into our community in a good and meaningful way. And I'm going to give you some background on what I mean when I say that later. Okay. In STEM Studio, we remove barriers and we create opportunities for our community. We increase STEM awareness and opportunities for our community, and it is community-led. We listen to what our community is saying. Even as Native people, I don't know everything, right, about what's going on in the tribal community. And so it's really important to make sure that I sit and I actively listen and then work through ways with our partners on how we can combat and tackle some of these issues. And this is kind of the jumping off point of the Hooheh Reforestation and Cultural Burn program. Our vision is to make sure that we're providing that steady variety of STEM activities. We don't know what kids may be interested in or what parents or adults may be. As you've seen, like our full model of our program is we're looking at the whole family unit. And so we've had many adults, parents who said, hey, I think I want to go into a tech field, or I think I want to go into this other field. And so I like to say that we're moving generations towards STEM, not just one generation. Our values are really at our core. We make sure that we're utilizing our Indigenous framework, that we're working in a good and meaningful way, not in a consumptive way with our own community, that our culture and we're giving back into the community. And so you'll see a lot of our programs, there may cost a little bit more, but that's because we're hiring a Native person to do our t-shirts, to serve our food, where they're maybe building spears for us for spear fishing, that we look within our community and utilize the resources and the talents that we have internally. And it is this double and triple game where we can keep funding and keep supporting our own people within our community, but that money's not leaving our tribal community, that it stays within it. And that is very important for us to maintain. Our assets, and we see all of them. It's not just financial, it's also about our talents that we have as individuals. You know, I'm not a spear maker, but I know someone who is and who's very talented at it, or maybe has that type of skill set that can really, really help move us forward. Our Indigenous framework talks about how we operate. We meet the community where they are. This is where we start removing barriers. If your barrier is, I can't come to an event because I can't pay for gas, or maybe it's food. Maybe your barrier is the time of day that we're having the event. We work through these with community to make sure that we are offering appropriate opportunities that reaches all of our community wherever they may be, including if they're living outside of our tribal community. Late next week, we're going to launch ICP Teams Partnership, which is going to allow for tribal members who have youth that are in school to access an online platform that helps them with knowing where they're at in their school journey, and virtual tutoring, which is meeting our youth wherever they may be, not just in Bladen and Columbus County, but also if they're in Jacksonville, if they're in Raleigh. If we have tribal youth there, we want to meet them where they're at. That's what that really means. Our foundations is breaking cycles and creating new beginnings for our community. We relate with relationships and culture. We remove barriers to building relationships with community, and then also reconciliation. This is extremely important, and it may seem very simple to you, but no broken promises. If you make a commitment to community, especially our tribal community, that commitment has to stand. I do not make promises that I cannot keep for community. There have been too much trauma and for too long where we've made commitments. Either we ourselves as Native people have made commitments and not followed through, or where we've allowed outside partners to come in, make commitments to the community, and then leave that partnership for whatever reason. Something happened. We need to find a way. And like Wilma Mankiller said, we don't give up. We look at the individual, remains at the core of our work. We're really focusing on the people in our community. Okay. And I'll go through this a little bit quicker, but these are some of the considerations that we use as we build our programs. And I think this is very important to make sure that you see how we operate. It's not necessarily what we do, it's how we do it and why we're doing it that's important. We live in Columbus and Bladen County is a persistent poverty county. What this means is for 30 plus years, they have consistently been below the poverty line. This means that basic needs like food and gas are not typically being met, especially on extra expenditures like STEM or providing or opportunities where we may say, come out to this event. Well, I don't have the gas, and then I have to provide food. We want to make sure we overcome that. We have generational trauma, broken promises, and consumptive behaviors. This happens within the community and outside the community. This is where individuals may come in and say, hey, I want to hear your stories. Tell me your stories, or tell me your Indigenous knowledge. I like to learn that. And then you take it back and you go document it and you research it yourself, and then you create a book about it. And then you have consumed Indigenous knowledge, and that you have then perpetrated and put back out as a consumptive, consuming more things from other people. It sounds bad when I say it like that, but as researchers and those who may be working in that field, that may sound very typical, that go out and learn and then come back and produce. But that is a product of colonization, where we have that consumptive behavior, and want to make sure that we're not contributing to that in this process. We live in rural communities, long commutes, lower access to broadband. I'll say access to broadband has improved. This is my little shout out to Corning, because we have improved broadband access with good internet into our tribal communities. But that also means we have less opportunities too, because we are out in the rural areas. Lower performing schools. We have 0.4% American Indians that have STEM degrees. I wonder why. Well, we're not meeting the standards for reading and math. In our tribal communities, most of the schools are in a D or F rated for math. And currently there are no after school programs. So in most inner cities, even where I live at in Brunswick County, we have after school programs that kids can participate in. There's nothing. There is, you go to school, you get dropped off at grandparents' home or somewhere else, and there's not a program that will help enrich that child after they finish schooling. And I'll say, here might be a little controversial, but I'll say typical STEM programs. And I follow this up purposely after the lower performing schools, because if you have a youth who has coming from a D and F rated school when it comes to reading and mathematics, and you put them into a STEM program in Wilmington or in Raleigh or Charlotte or one of the other inner cities where maybe those kids have advanced education or even like on par, youth can really feel like I'm one out of place because of the diversity or maybe lack thereof in the class, but also I'm not where I need to be at. And so educationally, to be able to keep on par with even computer programming, we wanted to teach computer programming early on, and we learned from the community, hey, kids, even in elementary, we're having difficulty reading. That can become a problem sometimes when it comes to teaching them how to code. And so we look at families learning together, which means everybody gets elevated. And it can look a lot like saviorism in some cases when this isn't really thought about, and saviorism really means, hey, I have a STEM program in Raleigh. You all come here to this STEM program, and I'm going to ask you to drive 2 hours one way, and I'm not going to provide you gas or food. But I open it up to everyone, but I didn't help overcome these burdens and these hurdles that really rural communities may have. And then our connection to land. This is displacement from land and really safety too. Whenever you leave tribal community, there is a lack of safety there, or a perceived lack of safety. And actually it's not really perceived if you are following missing and murdered Indigenous women. Statistics, 10 Native women are 10 times more likely to go missing or murdered throughout their lifetime than any other race in the United States. So it's really not just oh, there's a problem out there. There really is one. And then our culture and our medicine is also found there on our land, and we stay connected there. Okay. Cultural integrations, I've talked about our many different programs that we have. And so we have a lot of different ones going on, from ones that we are embedding in our culture as a part of. We have the Star Preservation Project, which is to preserve our people. We are known as people of the falling star, which may hopefully have been an indicator in in our logo of the falling star into kind of the vessel there. And so from that, we call it Star Preservation. We're preserving who we are. And from that, we are learning and pulling in and collecting digital content around the Waccamaw Siouan people that then is woven throughout all of our different programs. We have virtual integrations that we do virtually. We have annual events. I'll talk about one of them coming up. And then we also have partnership events. This is where some of our partners may say, hey, we have this great event. Can you come? We'll help cover gas. We'll help cover cost and food. Yes, we'll come, you know. Sound exploration and UNCW tours have also been a part of that. And then lastly here, which will catalyst us into the Hooheh Reforestation Resiliency Grant, is our pathways to change. This is where we're not only teaching youth about STEM, but we're allowing them to make a change in a hands-on change in their tribal community where they can live through and see those differences take place in their lifetime. So they're learning about why it's important. At the same time, we're also reforesting and bringing that back to community through this way. Okay. All right, so let's get into the reforestation and cultural part of this. And so this was really born out of a few different things. And so overview of this program is we're bringing Hooheh and fire back to the landscape of the Waccamaw Siouan people. This is really at the core. I was going to put more in there, but at the end of the day, this is what it's really about. We want to provide that opportunity for our community to bring a plant that was long lost for our community. Longleaf pines don't grow in our Buckhead or St. James tribal communities anymore, and we want to bring that back. Over the years, I've heard elders talk about, well, we used to use longleaf pine, now we're having to buy it, or now we're having to go somewhere else and get it off another landscape. But we want to provide that opportunity for our people here today. Bringing fire back. My mom tells a story of them burning the yards all the time, and I remember this. They would always burn the yards, and it may sound simple, but what happened is whenever they stopped burning the yards, Venus flytraps stopped coming back. And also what we call effectively jiggers and started coming up into the ground, and running around became more of a problem. And so the importance of fire and bringing that back to the landscape is also significantly important. We are doing this in partnership with the Nature Conservancy and National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, which I'm really excited to be our partners here. And I have to give a quick pause and shout out to the Nature Conservancy. They have been our partners in a lot of different programs over the past 3 years and have really worked with us in a really good way. Jeff Marcus and Debbie Crane have just been phenomenal and have really, I'll say, taken to heart our Indigenous program, our framework, and really built a really great partnership there. And so appreciative of them trusting us with this grant. And so this is not only a partnership with the Nature Conservancy and National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, also with the Waccamaw Siouan Tribe, of course, and Cape Fear River Assembly and STEM Studio. And getting into the grant a little bit more, or into the program, I kind of broke this down to 3 areas. First, the Hooheh connection. So why do we care so much? What are we going to be doing when it comes to Hooheh? The cultural burn connection. Why do we have that connection there? Why is it important? And then we're going to talk about On Fire STEM Camp. The Hooheh connection, we will be reforesting 20 acres of tribally owned land with Hooheh, which is our word for longleaf pine. I don't know if anyone was late and didn't catch that, but you'll be calling it Hooheh before we end, okay? We want the youth to design and plan a forest that they can see grow. We know longleaf pines have this long growth period of time. And so I can just imagine now our youth going there and being a small part of planting a plant and seeing it grow into full life. Of course, because we're part of STEM as well, we want to bring in the technology integrations We'll be seeing our forest live grow live, which will be really awesome and amazing to be able to go back and see that in a time-lapse way. We also will be restoring that traditional Hooheh back to our tribal community. Building ayokes are one of the ways that may happen. I don't know if we're gonna have enough longleaf pine for this, but ayokes are these principal homes that were identified on the coast of North Carolina and the Cape Fear area as the Spanish settlers were coming up the coast. They saw these large 300 by 300 feet principal homes built with longleaf pine that house our meeting homes for what will be Waccamaw Siouan people today. And so we have our youth who have built some small models of EOKs. They're actually on display at the Museum of Southeast American Indians at UNC Pembroke with our curator, Nancy Fields. If you want to see any of those in models, you can see them there. Also, Town Creek Indian Mound has one there as well at the top of their larger mound. We have pine baskets. We like to continue to make those using our own I'll say homegrown longleaf pine. And then cleaning the soil. And I have this in green because we had a grant that we closed out, our program we closed out last year called Soil Science. And it was really about identifying heavy metals and PFAS that was in our tribal community soil. We tested about 104 soil samples. And from that, we identified that our tribal community had on average between 3,000 and 7,000 parts per trillion of PFAS in the soil. And so if you can imagine telling a community, hey, and your family, right? Look, the soil's not good for you to grow in, to inhale, right, this dust. Longleaf pine is one of many ways that we can use to potentially clean that soil naturally without using any other methods, but doing that in a natural way. And so that's a quick segment and like how these different programs hook together and one builds off the other. To where not only did we identified an issue with soil science that is now proven into a solution here with Hooheh Reforestation. And also, I don't want to leave. I want to make sure we leave space for discovering new uses of the plant. We're always discovering new and amazing things, and just because as Native people, we may not use the traditional ways that we were taught. There may be new ways, and whatever way we create in this new way of using the plant is our way as well. It is a part of our culture, and we want to make sure that we honor that. The cultural burn connection, we're establishing a cultural burn crew while incentivizing our volunteer firefighters to participate. And one of the things I heard as listening to community is like, we need more volunteer firefighters. Well, if we can incentivize them to join and maybe make the volunteer firefighting a precursor or a prerequisite for you joining the burn crew, this would be a good way to incentivize being a volunteer firefighter. And so it's another look at listening to community and what their needs are and how many different ways can you shape a grant or be a part of that to where it can solve maybe more than one problem at a time. We'll be providing opportunities for sharing knowledge between tribes. I am very good friends with Kevin Melvin with the Lomboy tribe. We're working on this as well. He's working on cultural burns and Hooheh as well there. There's also a lot of other tribes in the United States that are also bringing back cultural burn connections back to their communities. And as a part of Native people, we've lost so much. Revitalizing is about all we do, it feels like. And so it's important to make sure that whenever that we honor those practices that we're bringing back for a community in their natural ways. As I had a brief conversation with one of our elders, and he said, actually, what do you mean by cultural burns? what does that mean versus prescribed burns? And I said, Mr. Sonny, where would you burn at over here? He was like, well, if I burn this is going to go to the left. And I remember back a long time ago where this land done this thing. And so I wouldn't burn there, would burn over here. And this plant grows better in this way. And I said, okay, just own it then, and so those are things that people who have been on the landscape for thousands of years can really bring back to community. And so I'm really happy to be able to awaken the elders, if you will, with their knowledge that they have, and really giving them space for owning that and honoring their knowledge that they have. We will be purchasing equipment, obviously, and participating in prescribed burns throughout this time to kind of build up our knowledge base there. And then lastly, here we have On Fire STEM Camp. As a part of all of this, we want to make sure that we're educating the community. We will have a week of camp that highlights the traditional uses of Hooheh for our community. Maybe we'll find some more. We'll be teaching the benefits of fire on the landscape and how our ecosystems can thrive. And then we'll also be talking about proper techniques for controlling burns. One of the things that I remember growing up is that fire was bad. And we want to make sure that students leave this camp understanding that fire is not a bad thing. It can awaken these seeds, awaken the Venus flytrap that have been buried under the soil, and as a representation of that burning, also as a representation of the Waccamaw Siouan people who have been waiting, right? We haven't gone anywhere. We've been here all this time, and we want to make sure that we're seeing those parallels, right, between bringing fire back and bringing that back for the soul of our people. And we'll also, as I am a computer science person, we'll be bringing in new technology that can predict burn patterns. I saw it at ACES. So I'm really excited about offering that back and how it can be used to help us in predicting where burns could occur and where we may want to focus at doing some prescribed burns early on in some vulnerable places. And then we'll be introducing drones. What kid doesn't like a drone, right? Or adult. All right, so I'm wrapping up on my last two slides. I talked about some of our programs that we have. We have the 4th annual Yachune. Yachune is our word for fish. Camp and enrichment. We typically have about 300 people come to our fish camp. It is free. It's open to the public. It is April 12th and 13th. We are offering encampment this time. I always camp out, but this time we invited some friends to come camp with us. This camp is free. Come fish with your whole family. You see here my nephew Lucas and my brother-in-law Nick here fishing at the ponds. We have 8 largemouth bass ponds. We teach traditional fishing techniques with spears, which one of our elders created. And so we're excited to have that back. And our sponsors there is the National Parks Foundation, North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, North Carolina Museum of Natural Science at Whiteville, and the National Park Service. And so this is our 4th year, and so really excited about that. And it's a good way to where we're marrying up between, or a good example, I'll say, of bringing our traditional techniques and re-giving that back to our community. Another great example is May 4th at 10 a.m. We're having the Green Swamp Big Bloom. This is amazing. If you were here in North Carolina, you may or may not have heard there is a large fire in the Green Swamp, which is a traditional homelands of the Waccamaw Siouan people. And this year will be this big bloom. I'm sure Mother Nature is not going to disappoint me in my big bloom spiel, but we're excited to invite the tribal community out and others out who want to come and take a tour with us through the Green Swamp. We'll be experiencing drone technology, new and fun scavenger hunt. We'll have giveaways, free food, And it's also sponsored by the Nature Conservancy, the tribe, and STEM Studio. So excited to kind of share more about the program. Okay. And this is my last slide here, and I think hopefully there's been a few questions. And I'm gonna open that chat up here in a second and see what those are. But I will leave you here. Get connected with us. There are a lot of different ways to learn about what we're doing. We are on Instagram, Facebook. We're also on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel which has a lot of our elders talking and sharing those stories. We have an amazing website, stemstudio.waccamaw-siouan.org. You can see all of our programs here and really just stay connected with us as a people. There is a subscription that you can sign up for any events we have and want to learn more about what we're doing, and also keep up with us with the reforestation. So with that, I'm going to end my presentation almost 2 minutes in advance, David. So I'll stop talking.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ashley. This was so informative and inspiring. No questions have come in yet, but I came up with a couple in the time that we've been waiting. I'm so impressed that the STEM Studio is entirely volunteer led. How many of you does it take to support the program?
Yes. So I actually run the program in a unconventional way. I'll say that where we don't tax out all the volunteers at one time. So some volunteers are like, hey, I'm really into tech, so I really only want to do techie things. So those only do techie things. I have other ones who are like, I'm into biology and fishing. Those are the ones who I tap for the fishing, right? I have other ones who are like, I just do finance. I really like to impress on finance. And really I attribute that to our onboarding process. When I onboard a new STEM Studio member, I talk to them about, what are you passionate about? What is it you want to do? What kind of time commitment do you want to have? And then from that, I'm able to kind of build programs and nestle them in to where they told me that they want to be. And so, yeah, I think that it fluctuates. Sometimes it may be 2 of us, sometimes it may be 10. Last year for our STEM Day event, we had nearly 400 people on site at Lake Waccamaw State Park. It was the largest event they've ever had. We had 300 participants, 100 volunteers, and we had 13 different tribes represented from across the United States there at our STEM Day. And so we're actually planning it for this coming year. So it varies and fluctuates depending on the need. And my community always shows up. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, now we've got some questions rolling in and some good ones at that. One attendee is asking, how can I support STEM Studio? And is it tax deductible?
Definitely tax deductible for the tribe. So if you go to our website, we have a donate button that's there. When you click the donate to STEM Studio, it actually takes you to the Waccamaw Siouan tribe page, and you can donate there through PayPal. And then you get all your tax ID and all that. The EIN number is all through there.
And to the participants in the webinar, all the links that are on this screen that you're seeing right now, I'll share in a follow-up email, as well as link to the STEM Studio donate page. And it looks like Joanna just put one in the chat too. So if you're eager to get on that, the site is there for you.
Thank you.
You mentioned the Big Bloom and the Fish Camp are open to the public. Is STEM Day also open to non-tribal members?
STEM Day is not. STEM Day is scoped to just Native American youth. And we actually have, well, let me back that up. Native American youth and elders. Okay, so our STEM camp is a little bit, as you can see, and meets our community where we're at. Our elders said, hey, I want to participate too. I didn't go through any of this virtual reality stuff. I skipped all that in school. And so we actually have an elder lounge during our STEM Day we had about 75 elders, and 20 of them came up from the Catawba Nation. We have elders from all over the state who come and we really roll out literally the red carpet. They have this nice little lounge outside in the, at Lake Waccamaw State Park. We have attendees, or I'll say supporters, that help cater to them. Do you need water? This is all done in a right relationship way with our tribal community and how we are to treat and honor our elders. We encouraged our youth to bring tobacco to the elders and look for story. Hopefully, maybe they'll be lucky enough to hear a story from them. And they got to participate in the cybersecurity hygiene, okay, how not to get hacked on Facebook, and also virtual reality. They got to go on a trip around the world, and we thought that, them in their later years maybe won't make it to the Taj Mahal or to the pyramids. And so what better way to bring all that to them? So it is a mix between youth and adult, again, meeting the community where they're at.
I love that intergenerational approach too. Youth learn from elders and vice versa.
Yeah.
Could you speak a little bit more about how Waccamaw Siouan members have used fire in the past?
Yeah, so in the past, what we've learned, and this is just what I've learned anecdotally from talking and listening, I'll say, to our elders, and what I saw growing up is that we would burn our yards, our grass, every fall or early spring. We would typically burn large swaths of land to really cut down the brush, which is where we would burn at. And during those times where we were using fire on the landscape in our tribal community, we did see Venus flytraps come up. And those were very typical. And then whenever the fire went away, so did the Venus flytraps and the other carnivorous plants. Yeah.
And I'm gonna skip a question because this is directly relevant. What relationship does the tribe have with the Venus flytrap?
I like to say it's a new relationship. I think that, and I can say this as growing up in Buckhead tribal community right next to the grain swamp, I've heard about the Venus flytrap. It's been around, but really have not had this connection to it until more recently. And I think this is this great relationship, even with the Nature Conservancy, in highlighting. We didn't really realize, I hate to say it, like how important it was. Like, this is one of the only places in the world this grows. And so when I started, even in the past few weeks, started thinking about the importance of Venus flytraps. So we are the only tribe in the world that has Venus flytraps on the landscape. That's an impactful statement, and that's something even more so to be proud of. And so we need to kind of wrap around the Venus flytrap, if you will, with that being, our traditional land. So I think it's really important to renew those lost connections, and through that process, actually reestablish it back and better understand, how did we use the Venus flytrap? Did we, use it in the landscape, and really share some of those stories, and through that process and natural evolution, identify what does that mean for us today.
All right. This question is about impacts of the STEM studio. Have you seen graduates of that studio going on to college to study STEM subjects?
Yeah, actually, one of them, I'm Cyrus Jacobs. I was actually conversing with my counterpart, Cody, and who works at Red Hat. And I was like, I think Cyrus is our first kid, and so he's graduating this year with his information with a tech. I'll mess it up, but he's graduating with a computer degree this year, and then going on for his master's. And he's actually volunteering back with us this weekend. We have another one who he just had a tech job in Charlotte, Nathan Campbell, and he's kind of moving on. And so now we're starting to see youth that are kind of, had gone through, at least on the tail end of that process, I think naturally, by putting ourselves out there and saying, hey, look, we're here for you. What happened is we had community members who were like, I think I can do this tech field. And so they were kind of on the cusp of going into a computer science degree. And we kind of mentored them through the process, even to the point of helping them find a job, as like I think Cyrus like toured the Red Hat Tower in Raleigh, a few weeks ago by his own accord, and so I'm really happy to see that, and more happy to see that parents are supporting their kids going into STEM fields. That has been probably the biggest shift I've seen, because it's been an unknown, as parents didn't grow up in this field, in this at that time where we had a lot of computers. And so there's a lot of apprehension around going into, I don't know what that field means. I don't know what kind of job it is, but I do know what nursing and what a teacher and what social work means. So maybe go one of those fields, because I am, as a parent, am comfortable with that. And so it's really, you see that big difference when you see moving generations towards STEM. The youth aren't going to go to school where the parent don't agree, right? I've been through that, so.
Well, that must be so rewarding just to see this shift.
Yeah,
it really speaks to the impact of this program. Got a couple of folks that are interested in getting involved. And are you looking for more partners with the studio, and should they just reach out to you via the email on the screen here?
Yes, the email on the screen will be the best way. If you email me, just kind of share a little bit, like, hey, about what your thoughts are. I typically would do like an intro, but if you went through this, you kind of got the intro. And so we can kind of talk about what we're working toward and how you want to partner. So we're always looking for more opportunities for our kids and for our community to grow. So thank you.
Wonderful. And then folks who don't live locally but want to be involved, how can they support?
Yeah, well, I think they can stay in touch. Well, let me back up. It depends, if they want to meet and we talk about the program. We've actually mentored other STEM programs to help them get started in this right way. And like I said, like, it's more about the how we're doing it than it is about the what we're doing for me, because it really is a model that I think needs to be, followed throughout Native countries, like, and not only will be beneficial for other Native communities to look at doing, but it also teaches partnerships, really how to establish those in a good way, right? And so for those that are out, I would say keep up with us on socials. Look at our page. If you like something and you're like, hey, I like this, I think I want to try this in my area, feel free to hit me up, reach out. We love to share what we're doing. We love to share resources so that others can use it. And we actually also have some materials on our website as well that you can download and utilize. We have videos, we have a podcast there. So there's a lot of things that you can avail yourself of online. And again, I'm always, as you can tell, love to chat about the program. So
That's wonderful. I think this is outside of STEM work, but where can folks learn more about Waccamaw basketry or other art forms of the tribe?
yeah, I would say go to our website, but I don't think we have a lot of information that's there. I know that our tribal office does sell locally made baskets, pine needle baskets. I've seen some there for sale. And so you can probably reach out to the Waccamaw Siouan tribal office. I don't have their number here, but if you look at at the tribe's website, you'll be able to see that there, and see if I can put it in the chat. Actually.
Well, I think we've reached the end of our questions there. So while you search for that link, I can invite Joanna on for some parting words.
Ashley, thank you so much. We're so grateful for you being here, and what an amazing program. And I hope everyone on this program follows up and learns more from your website and stays connected with all the great work you're doing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for having me as well. I appreciate you taking the time and learning more about our people and our program. And I look forward to coming back later and sharing with you a fully grown, I might be 50, but a fully grown forest. So thank you for having me.